Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
We're going to make it crystal clear that our military, the Japanese self-defense forces, our allies here in South Korea, all of our allies across the region are fully prepared
military
to defend our nations and to take what action is necessary to defend our homeland.
Vice President Mike Pence is leading the U.S. delegation to the Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea this week. And he made headlines when he and his wife refused to stand when the United Korean team marched together under one flag during the opening ceremony. Now, this is the same Mike Pence, you'll recall, who staged a walkout of an NFL game when players dared to kneel in protest during the U.S. national anthem. So what does it all mean for the growing tensions between North Korea and the U.S. and the threat of nuclear war? Joining me now is Sumi Terry, former CIA analyst on Korean issues, and Lawrence Wilkerson, retired U.S. Army colonel and former chief of staff to U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell. Sumi, I want to come to you first on that issue of Mike Pence refusing to stand. This was a unified team, North Korea and South Korea is the host country. How do you think that refusal to stand played both in North Korea and in South Korea?
Well, certainly North Korea did not play well, but in South Korea too. South Korea is a key ally of the United States. South Korea is hosting the Olympics. Right. It's not just the North Korean athletes that were coming in. There were South Korean athletes that were coming in. I think Vice President Pence could have stood up.
Yeah.
He's allowing North Korea to win a gold medal in the propaganda war, this whole propaganda thing. I mean, why let North Koreans look better?
Yeah.
Why not be gracious and stand up?
Can you just talk a little bit about this idea of unification, and what is driving it? Is the North driving this idea of unification? Is this about the talks to try to reduce tensions? And how is that idea? We have the flag. There's a piece in the Atlantic that says the reunification flag romanticizes the current situation based on a kind of romantic nationalism, according to Kim Sung-han, who's a former senior South Korean diplomat. For all its associations with unity and a shared vision, however, the flag may ultimately mean completely different things for Seoul and Pyongyang. If for South Korea it represents a ticket to denuclearization talks, North Korea may view it as an opportunity to avoid them altogether. What do you make of that argument?
I think that is true. North Korea is trying to use this ethnic nationalism to talk about unification. Unification has always been North Korea's long-term design, long-term goal. So that's that. But from South Korea's perspective, I think they're just very into trying to translate this current thought and make it into a greater breakthrough on the denuclearization front. They really want to move to a greater breakthrough, make Washington and Seoul talk to each other on denuclearization.
Well, on the question of Washington, Colonel Wilkerson, Donald Trump quite famously tried to take credit for the thaw between the North and the South, saying essentially in a call to his counterpart, to the president of South Korea, just give me the credit, even though he had nothing to do with putting these talks together. What is Washington's role at this point?
Well, I agree with what Sumi has just said, and let me add that since I have been working this issue since about 1969, a principal strategic objective of Pyongyang, North Korea, has been to separate the United States and South Korea, ultimately to fray the alliance, if not break it apart. Bilateral relations with South Korea has been a principal strategic tool within that overall strategy. We have given with Pence's performance, with the area we deployed theater high-altitude air defense to the peninsula, with not placing an ambassador in Seoul for over a year, we have given incredible impetus to that strategic move by North Korea.
And let's talk about some of the other issues, because, you know, we all have now become accustomed to the North Korean leader parading his military assets as sort of a show of force to the world, to make a statement to the world. We now have an American president who would like to do the same. Mike Pence was in the position of commenting on both this week. The headline in The Hill saying that he won a gold medal for hypocrisy, saying these two things. On the North Korean version of these parades, an effort on the part of the regime in Pyongyang to display their ballistic missiles, to display a military that continues to make menacing threats across the region and across the wider world. That's how he described the parade that North Korea held. And then on Donald Trump's idea for a parade, he says any opportunity we have to celebrate the men and women of the armed forces of the United States is a great day. Colonel Wilkerson, what do you make of this dual attitude that Mr. Pence has toward military parades?
I think it's rather absurd. I'll be the first to admit, and I hope I'm right, that there's a huge difference between North Korea and the United States. But at the same time, I echo the views of the poll conducted by Army Times yesterday, I believe. That's sort of the unofficial newspaper of my Army. And it was 9 out of 10 soldiers and other readers of the Army Times said waste of our time and a waste of taxpayer money. That's how I feel about it.
And, you know, Sumi, part of the sort of paranoia of what they call the hermit kingdom of the North Korean regime is partly about place, right? They're not that far from, the Nagasaki and Hiroshima, right? If you just look at the map there of where they are situated in the world, and the memory of the fact that the United States did use nuclear weapons to end World War II in that sense, and then the fact that the 38th parallel, this sort of divide between them, it's chosen by the Soviet Union and the U.S. after World War II, redrawn after the Korean War, separating the two, but it's very close, I mean, to where these Olympics are being held. So there's a lot that's a lot more fraught for people on the peninsula. How does the idea of America sort of reflecting the same idea of marching tanks and military equipment down Pennsylvania Avenue, what message would that send to the regime of Kim Jong-un, and how would that be received by the South Korean administration?
I don't think North Korea or South Korea will obviously want to see this parade. And I completely agree. I mean, we don't need this parade. It's one thing to have joint training exercises. That's a readiness issue. But this parade is a complete waste of time and money and resources. And it's not going to play well with South Korea either, because South Korea is just really looking for some sort of breakthrough to move on to a sort of a dialogue and engagement. And what is this parade for? It doesn't really help in terms of making progress on the nuclear missile front.
Do you think it's unfair for people to say that Donald Trump more and more behaves the way Kim Jong-un behaves? Or is that something that maybe Kim Jong-un sees and thinks, well, maybe this is somebody I can deal with because he is more like me?
I don't think Kim Jong-un is looking at Mr. Trump and saying he's more like me, therefore I can deal with him. I think Kim Jong-un is very confused, like everybody else, in terms of what Mr. Trump is all about. But I don't think in terms of optics, we need to play North Korea's game. North Korea is North Korea. That's why they hold these parades. We're not North Korea. We're the United States. We don't need to do this. We have the most powerful military in the world, and everybody knows it.
And everybody knows it. And Colonel Wilkerson, for that reason, I think that's why a lot of Americans are sort of dumbfounded by this idea. Is it unfair in your view to say that Donald Trump is sort of behaving more like Kim Jong-un, maybe even as a way to scare him?
I don't think so. I tried to think that way at first. I tried to put some reason behind his bellicosity, but what I think Sumi just said, writ large across a panoply of U.S. policies, and domestic and foreign, is just uncertainty, confusion, that doesn't seem necessary. I think the real problem with this administration now is it does not know where it is going.
Yeah, and neither do many Americans. Thank you so much, Sumi Terry. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson.
It is Monday, the 12th of February of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and it is River City Hash Mondays for our daily special. A different daily special for every day of the week, because that's how special you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Well, if you're here, it means you survived the weekend, which is good because the weekends are always tough now. A lot of news comes through on the weekends, and some people just can't handle it. It just overloads. And I don't blame you. So take a rest. I mean, and one way to do that, for me, I like to watch the Olympics. I didn't think I would this year, but I am. Well, it's the Winter Olympics. It's not the real Olympics. Don't tell the athletes at the Winter Olympics that. Trust me, they'll get mad. But I don't remember in ancient Greece, the Mogul run down Mount Etna. Do you? I don't. Now, if they were doing it with a javelin, that's a different story. But that would actually be fun. Doing like a 2.5 whatever on your snowboard, and then throwing a javelin and seeing if you can hit a target. That would be the new biathlon. Yeah. Which is actually another event I didn't think I would like very much, but I'm coming to really enjoy the modern pentathlon and biathlon. Well, I think it would be the biathlon. That's the one where you ski and shoot. Cross-country ski, get you all fatigued, and then you're supposed to hold this rifle steady and hit 5 targets. And if you don't hit one, then you got to do an extra lap. Well, a penalty lap takes you about 20-25 seconds. You miss 2, you got to do 2 of those laps. There you go, 50 seconds or more. And when these races are determined and decided by, well, in some instances, fractions of a second. But in the cross-country events, like the biathlon, seconds at least, doing those penalty laps just tires you out, then you got to shoot again. That's pretty interesting. I want to see the one where you ski on a snowboard. You go down on the snowboard and you throw a javelin while you're doing like a half gainer up 40 feet in the air. That's what I would like to see. But we're not going to see it soon because I'm not running the Olympics, thank God. Okay, well, Pence decided to go to the Olympics and sit with the president of South Korea and the sister of the North Korean guy. Because the South and North Korea are trying to keep from blowing each other up. Or actually, I should say, keep the United States from blowing them up. And they came in during the opening ceremonies. You saw it. And Pence and Mother would not stand. It's almost like they were taking a knee. Imagine that. Now, remember, Pence fabricated the need, well, not Pence alone, but the White House, and sent Pence to a football game to essentially walk out on football players who were taking a knee, to draw attention and everybody say a prayer for people who have been killed needlessly. Not the ones that have been killed because they deserved it, but the ones who were killed needlessly by the cops. Not slamming the military, not saying they hate the flag, just to say a prayer for those who have been killed needlessly by the cops. And he had to walk out on that because that's obviously an affront to national security. But he doesn't get the Olympic spirit. Nations coming together, actually getting along. No, we need conflict. And with the amount of conflict that is in that White House right now, yeah, team of rivals. Yes, it's the rivalry between the sycophants and the just out-and-out craven opportunists. That's the kind of rivalry they got in this White House. It ain't Abraham Lincoln. Nope, it ain't Seward. Whew. No, it's not. Well, military parades, that's what was also discussed. Pence just derided, these military parades, they're just emblematic of authoritarian regimes. And then when asked about military parade in Washington, D.C. that will tear up Pennsylvania Avenue because it's not made for tanks. That's probably be part of the infrastructure bill. Beef up Pennsylvania Avenue so they can drive a proper tank on it. What kind of country is this? Huh? Well, tanks down our streets are just fine. Which just reminds me how craven and opportunistic these folks have been, are now, and apparently always will be. What's on the menu today, folks? Well, I'll tell you what's on the menu here on River City Hash Mondays. 11 government employees quit after the election of the first woman mayor in the fundamentalist Mormon city of Hilldale, Utah. And they spell Hill with only one L. Oregon Senator Ron Wyden has officially requested that the Treasury Department hand over records of Trump's $100 million deal with a Russian oligarch, Dmitry Rybolev. Yeah, there's a Rybolev, not a Rybolev. Rybolev. And the Trump inaugural committee still cannot account for $107 million in donations. Sounds like another Russian pass-through to me, but I'm just a romantic. After the break, then we'll move to the chef's table to analyze how thousands of websites, including U.S. and U.K. government websites, were infected for several hours yesterday with crypto mining malware. No, it's not SETI. It's not the people running SETI using all sorts of different computers, like your own little PC computer to crunch data so that they can find out if there's radio signals emanating from a distant part of the galaxy that might be intelligent sourced. Not that. Apparently, they're using our computers to make money in cryptocurrency. Okay, we'll look into that. And here's some good news. This is some good news. A federal court in California has ruled that holding inmates longer on immigration detainers is unconstitutional. I guess that's called a sanctuary court. Gonna have to get rid of it. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. If you go to netrootsradio.com and you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll notice the chat room link at the rightish of the page. And do contact us there. That's one way to contact us. Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, does monitor that quite diligently. And if you look to the leftish of the page, you'll notice the contribute donate buttons. And thank you for your generosity. That is how we pay our bills. And thank you, really, from the bottom of our hearts. You can get podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, as well as the Justice Department Musique Sans Frontières by way of Spreaker, and I put up links on that on all the appropriate platforms. And you can also hear us on TuneIn, Stitcher, and other places that podcasts can be found. So let's get on with this first story here by Brad Reed here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Well, Hilldale, Utah, and they spell Hilldale with one L on Hill. So go figure, they're fundamentalists. That's how they do it. The election of a woman mayor in that, they call it a city. Is it really a town? They call it a city. In Utah has caused a political earthquake that has sparked a mass exodus of government employees. Wow. Apparently, they're mandated by, is it body thetans? Am I confusing Scientology with Mormonism? They're being, they could be not clear enough on whether they're allowed to work for a woman, apparently. Yeah. Certainly a magic pants planet. Okay, magic underwear planet. They were mandated, or they're going to go there. But their elders on that magic underwear planet have mandated that working for a woman is not seen very manly, apparently. Yeah. So 11 city employees resigned from their positions last week, and one of them cited his religious objections to working for a woman as the primary reason. Specifically, the employee claimed that his religious beliefs prevented him from, quote, following a woman and from serving on a board with apostates as the reason for his resignation. Well, good riddance. You know, there is a separation of church and state, and this is one way to separate them. Just let them quit, and if they don't quit, fire their asses. If their religious beliefs are intruding upon their ability to do their government work, then get them out of there, as the Founding Fathers intended. Mayor Donia Jessup, who made history as the first woman elected as mayor of Hilldale last November, was sworn into office last month. She is also the first Hilldale mayor who is not a member of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which has long been the most dominant force in the city's politics. You would think. So substitute "I will not work with apostates," which by itself sounds like something ISIS would say. In fact, you could lose your head over that. Literally. And so well, you know, let's not even mention the ISIS connection, which is so obvious. Let's say I can't work with people who have not been made men. And women just can't be made men by definition. So, are we going to go back to our mob roots? Yes, I know. That's why we became a country, a nation of laws, because of our. Some people called it the Wild West. I call it the rule of the mob. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, fundamentalist Mormon sect, is infamous for its promotion of polygamy and child marriages. The church also forces all female members to wear pioneer-style dresses. And the church is led by Warren Jeffs, the notorious polygamist who is now serving a life sentence after being convicted of sexual assault in 2011. Yep. Okay, so the fundamentalists, not the church, not just Mormons, but a virulently, Mountain Meadows type of Mormon, maybe. You got to watch out for those. Hey, they'll sneak up on you when you're not even looking. All right, next offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Hey, did you hear Newsweek? There's something going on with Newsweek. I think that something's really going on. So this is by way of national memo. Tom Porter, who wrote for Newsweek, penned this. So my senator here in Oregon has formally requested that the Treasury Department hand over records of Trump's sale of that Palm Beach estate, which he bought. Remember that? He bought it for $41 million and then sold it to that Russian oligarch only 4 years later for $95 billion. $41 million. And Trump says, oh, yeah, I made a few improvements. You know, it was in bankruptcy. You know, you get it for really a low price, $41 million. and then you turn around and sell it for $95 billion. I've been in real estate before in various capacities. Development, sales, staging even. I was a stager. Did you know that? Ran my own little staging company in the East Bay. But one thing that I know is that when you have these like sales like this, they will sometimes call that a fraudulent pass-through, meaning money laundering. So Wyden wrote to the Treasury Department, "It is imperative that Congress follow the money, or rubles, in this reporter's opinion, and conduct a thorough investigation into any potential money laundering or other illicit financial dealings between the president, his associates, and Russia." Now, the Netroots Radio style manual generally precludes us from using the term president and Trump together. But in this one, they didn't say Trump also. They, meaning he, Ron Wyden, my senator here in Oregon. So I think in this instance, since I actually wrote the style manual, I think it's okay. Not that anybody else other than me would follow it. Just saying. Okay, Wyden, who sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee that is investigating the alleged collusion, I guess they still have to say that, between the Trump camp and Russia, wrote that the transaction between Trump and oligarch Dmitry Rybolovlev is being probed by special counsel Robert Mueller. Well, no wonder they want to get rid of Mueller, because this is the kind of stuff that various people end up having convenient heart attacks, convenient murders in the lobby of their hotel or apartment building. What else? Oh, yeah, the convenient polonium poisonings. That's always convenient. And the one I love is the convenient falling out of 5-story windows, moving a piano. And you don't live on a 5-story building, and you don't own a piano. Okay, he meaning Wyden, noted the timing of the 2008 sale, which came months after Trump Entertainment Resorts filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Ooh, they got an angel investor. And while the then real estate mogul was struggling to find banks willing to lend to him, of course, because he was a fraudster and never paid back his bills. He's still getting money through Deutsche Bank, but it really wasn't from Deutsche Bank. We know that. Of course, Trump, whines, what do I have to do with Russia? The only thing I ever did with Russia was sell this what was this again? $41 million. I bought this thing and I sold it to the guy for $95 billion. I did a few improvements. That's what you do. And he did. So, of course, the Trump Organization and Treasury Department has not commented on Wyden's request. Wyden has requested Treasury Department suspicious activity reports on the transaction, which are filed when officials suspect money laundering, and information on who purchased the estate when it was sold off in separate lots by Rybolovlev to buyers operating through offshore companies. Finishing up here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is by the great Sarah K. Burris. Millions of dollars in unregulated cash forked over to any politician seeking to hold a massive party to commemorate their own inauguration. What could possibly go wrong? While most officials have raised maybe several millions of dollars, the Trump committee brought in a record-breaking $107 million in individual and corporate donations. I'm still following the rubles here. This sounds like another pass-through to me. But, like I said, I'm a romantic. However, only half of that money was spent, and even those dollars seemed over and above what others have spent. Look what Obama raised and spent, and he had Beyonce. And Trump got what? Like some Montana drum major group? Jeez. Okay. While the inaugural committee claimed the overages would go to charities, it has not. Indeed, no one knows where the money has gone. Committee Chairman Tom Barrack claimed to the committee that the committee would file an annual report with the donations given to charity for the IRS, and that was 2 months ago. They could file a 990 form with the FEC. Even if the inaugural committee does need more time to file his 990, there's nothing stopping it from voluntarily disclosing how it spent the leftover funds and whether any money went to charity. Well, it went to charity, but, the administrative fees sometimes eats it all up. It happens. Well, the promises of disclosure were set for fall of 2016. Then the date became November, and here we are in the middle of February. Happy Valentine's Day. Well, the public still has no idea how the inaugural committee spent $107 million. Maybe it went to a legal defense fund. It could. So Barrack announced they would donate $3 million to charities involved in hurricane relief in the Gulf after Hurricane Harvey. So far, that's been the only disclosure. And the absurd amount of money raised by Barrack made Trump so happy that sources said he was even considered as a replacement for Chief of Staff John Kelly. I guess he's going to be considered as a replacement even now. It could have happened while we speak. Okay, considering that the inaugural committee's only job was to put on a few parties in January of 2017, it's difficult to see why it would need any extensions to the IRS filing. A fellow from Brendan Fisher, that's the director of FEC programs at the Campaign Legal Center, said, "The constant delays really make you wonder what it is they are trying to hide. Rubles. They're hiding rubles." Okay, let's get to our break. And then when we come back, we'll go through the weather from around the world and finish up at the chef's table. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Have you noticed that Donald Trump constantly prefaces his outlandish lies with such phrases as, "to be honest with you," "to tell the truth," and "believe me"? Why? Because, like a snake oil salesman, he constantly needs to convince himself that he's speaking the truth in order to perform his next lie convincingly. The show must go on and on. In fact, he already ranks as the lyingest president in U.S. history, and that includes Nixon. Trump's biggest whopper is that he's an honest-to-God populist, standing up for America's hard-hit middle class against Wall Street, corporate lobbyists, and moneyed elites. This prevarication has duped many working stiffs into thinking he's their champion. The huckster doubled down on this lie in his inaugural address last year, pompously declaring, "The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer." That's why a new straight-talking pamphlet by the watchdog group Public Citizen is so important. It exposes the people's champion as a rank fraud who is pushed from day one to further enrich and empower corporate elites he had denounced as a candidate. Public Citizen's report documents with concise, easy-to-grasp specifics how Trump, the faux populist, has systematically sold out the working families whose votes he cynically swiped, handing our government to a kakistocracy of corporate plutocrats. This is Jim Hightower saying, it's not merely that he's an irredeemable liar, but that Trump himself is a lie. The Public Citizen expose is titled Forgetting the Forgotten, 101 Ways Donald Trump has Betrayed the Middle Class, and it drives the stake of truth through the heart of his populist pretensions. Don't just read it. Use it like a Thomas Paine pamphlet to spread the truth. To download a free copy, go to corporatepresidency.org/forgotten.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
From United Nations headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with a selection of the day's top world news headlines. The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics in South Korea is in the books. Athletes from North and South Korea entered the event together under the flag of unification and were announced merely as Korea.
Korea!
High above them in a VIP booth was U.S. Vice President Mike Pence alongside the leaders of Japan and South Korea. And just feet away from them were North Korea's 90-year-old ceremonial president and Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong. But proximity doesn't necessarily make friends. Pence reportedly introduced himself to all of those in the VIP booth except for the 2 North Koreans. His top aides say the vice president hasn't ruled out the possibility of face-to-face meetings with North Korean officials, though he is demanding that the North put its nuclear weapons program on the table ahead of any talks. So much, then, for an Olympic diplomatic breakthrough. And it doesn't take much to get arrested by the Turkish government these days as President Recep Erdogan pushes ahead with a controversial military campaign in Syria. Last month, Turkish troops invaded northwestern Syria to eliminate Kurdish fighters allied with the United States. That decision sparked a major row within the NATO alliance as well as concerns within Turkey. In the 3 weeks since the Turkish offensive began, at least 600 people have been arrested for criticizing the mission. As of Friday, their ranks now include one of the country's most senior Kurdish opposition figures. President Erdogan famously doesn't take criticism lightly. Earlier this week, he ordered the Turkish Medical Association change its name after the physicians group criticized the Syria mission. On Thursday, the group was banned from using the word Turkish altogether, with President Erdogan saying in a speech that, quote, nothing about them is worthy of the notion of Turkishness. For more global news headlines, visit talkmedianews.com. Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. And we will now give you a little palate cleanser as we sit here at the chef's table. And that is always weather from around the world, and we begin along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America. It is currently 29 degrees. Oh, you know, we had snow flurries yesterday. Yeah, it didn't really stick, but snow flurries in the morning till around noonish, a little past noon, and then it turned into a fairly good rain. And rather chilly. It was only in the just above freezing to the I wouldn't say upper 30s, but it did bounce to around 37, 38 degrees yesterday. Now today, we are forecast to be considerably warmer. We're supposed to get to 51. I doubt it. They say that we will be drying out, but I don't think so at 91% humidity. Where I'm at right now, it's misting, and the mist has a nice little freezing quality to it. At 29 degrees, you would expect that. And it will. Now, we will be drying out by our terms, meaning that there won't be actual large drops of water falling from the sky, just little droplets that are usually suspended in the air. Oh boy, so that will continue until Wednesday, and then we will actually have large drops of water falling from the sky in mass quantities. And then it may be cold enough that we could have snow flurries or the dreaded sleet. Don't want that. So pressure's gone up a little bit to 30.05 inches. Visibility is at 7 miles. I mentioned that humidity, of course, is at 91%. Air quality index has moved from moderate to good at 33 parts per million, just kind of on the cusp there. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased, and these people live around the world. Okay, London is 44 and partly cloudy. Paris is 45 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 52 and partly cloudy. Kiev is 29 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 36 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 53 and clear. Tokyo, Japan is 35 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 74 degrees Fahrenheit in their summer, and they happen to be cloudy. San Francisco is 46 and partly cloudy, and New York is 41 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people put them on their property, and these people live around the world. Now that we are comfortably ensconced at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, we'll take a look at this story here out of Reuters by Jim Finkel out of Toronto, with additional reporting by Mark Hosenball in Washington, D.C., I presume. So, thousands of websites, including ones run by U.S. and U.K. government agencies, were infected for several hours on Sunday with code that causes web browsers to secretly mine digital currencies, technology news site The Register reported. More than 4,200 sites were infected with a malicious version of a widely used tool known as Browseloud from British software maker TextHelp, which reads out web pages for people with vision problems, according to The Register. The news comes amid a surge in cyber attacks using software that forces infected computers to mine cryptocurrencies on behalf of hackers. The prevalence of these schemes has increased in recent months as the volume of trading in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has surged. Now, I may be of a certain age, and I understand what a cryptocurrency is, but I still got to tell you, it sure smells like a Ponzi scheme. Somebody's going to be left holding the bag. I don't know. And the whole premise of a cryptocurrency sounds a lot like money laundering, too. Aren't we not supposed to do that? I know the arguments about freedom and whatnot, but still, I don't know. Of course, some hip hop rap artist forgot. Maybe it was 50 Cent. Yeah, it was 50 Cent. He forgot about a Bitcoin. Now, how can he had a Bitcoin in his pocket? Is that true? I thought maybe Bitcoin in his wallet, and the wallet's a virtual wallet, right? You don't really have it in your drawer, your dresser drawer, next to your jewelry. You don't have it there. It's out there in the ether. And he forgot about a Bitcoin that he had purchased or given to him or whatnot. And it had increased in value exponentially to some like exorbitantly large amount, like $1 million or something. Crazy. So, I don't know. Sounds like hitting the lottery to me. So, the tainted version of BrowsyLoud caused inserted software for mining the digital currency Monero to run on computers that visited infected sites, generating money for the hackers behind the attack. Representatives of the U.S. and British law enforcement agencies and TextHelp could not immediately be reached for comment because it was probably early morning when they were trying to call the UK. I don't know. TextHelp told the Register that it had shut down the operation by disabling BrowsyLoud while its engineering team investigated. Well, we do that here all the time, not to find, infections, though it has been done before with our crack crew. Intergalactic crew, by the way, because we are all carbon from the stars, aren't we? So, I guess we'll have to look at that. Now, I mentioned earlier about SETI. I was part of when SETI began asking for help to network a lot of computers together to start crunching numbers and data. So, because they're scanning the sky for radio signals or any kind of signals, and they're picking up quasars and pulsars, and that's, they're not looking always for intelligent life, though if it happens, wow, wouldn't that be great? But they were really part of the task of mapping the sky and doing it on the radio wave level. And that's a lot of data to crunch, and they needed help, and they were able to spread it around. And so when your computer was in a sleep mode, SETI would use your computer and go to work. And some people like that, and some people didn't. And, sometimes, you'd have to empty cache a lot, let's just say. It would gum up your computer. Sometimes it was more problem than it was worth. I figure it was only a matter of time. And here it is. And I don't know, when they're visiting sites to generate money, I don't know what that means. We'll have to look into that, won't we? And we will.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
All right, finishing up here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is an article by Yvette Cabrera out of Think Progress. Now, this is great news. It's a decision, and this decision is another legal setback for the Trump administration as federal authorities pressure local police to cooperate with its immigration crackdown. Or, I like to romantically call it their Gestapo practices. Smells like it. Well, a federal judge in California ruled last Thursday that the LA County Sheriff's Department violated the constitutional rights of thousands of inmates that the agency detained for federal immigration authorities without probable cause. The latest in a series of legal blows to a strategy that forms the linchpin of the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. Jesus. I don't know. It sounds like a jobs bill. This is all to me like a jobs bill. You don't want some people having a job and you want other people to have a job, but you really don't want to pay the people that you're saying should have jobs because, they want too much. They're entitled just because they think they're born here. So then you want to spend a lot, even less money on slave labor possibly, because that's hardly any money at all. And maybe if you can get it so you don't even have to house them, or right around the time that you have to pay, you just kick them out of the country and tell them, well, make your way back and we'll give you another job. Could have that cycle. Well, U.S. District Judge Andre Briot Jr. held the L.A. Sheriff's Department liable for violating the Fourth Amendment rights of inmates the agency held without probable cause for ICE through the use of detainers, which are requests to hold inmates for up to 48 hours past their release date so that ICE can take those individuals into custody. I should mention that the L.A. County Sheriff's Department is notorious for violating Fourth Amendment rights, and you don't even have to be an, quote, illegal immigrant. You can be an actual citizen. I mean, it's especially bad if you're a U.S. citizen of color. But, they'll crack heads even if you're not. Don't give them any lip. The court's decision vindicates years of work by the L.A. immigrant community to challenge the Sheriff's Department abuses and throws a major wrench in the Trump administration's deportation machine, said Jessica Bensal, litigation director at the National Day Laborer Organization Network. And that was in a statement from the ACLU of Southern California, one of 5 organizations that brought 2 lawsuits against the Sheriff's Department and ICE. Well, obviously, this judge is not a Federalist Society judge. They're going to have to appeal and get a Federalist Society judge in here. Rio held that holding inmates beyond the release dates on the basis of immigration detainers constitutes a new arrest under the Fourth Amendment, and thus the Sheriff's Department could only arrest those people if officers had probable cause to suspect the individuals were involved in criminal activity. Now, the department's policy is now defunct. Yeah. Let's get away with what we can get away with until we get caught. Then we'll scream to high heaven how you're attacking the police. And then when enough judges tell us that we got to change, we'll reluctantly institute some changes. Yeah, okay. Let me just say ramparts. Ramparts. I know that's not L.A. County, but still, ramparts. It's L.A. County, but it's a different police agency. What happened in the county happens in the town. Yep. Well, the L.A. County officers did not have probable cause that the individuals were involved in criminal activity, but were instead holding these individuals on the basis of civil immigration detainers. The decision said the officers have no authority to arrest individuals for civil immigration offenses, and thus detaining individuals beyond their date for release violated the individual's Fourth Amendment rights, probably double jeopardy. You can't be arrested for the same crime twice. Or maybe that's convicted. There's another issue. They had him on probable cause for one other thing, but then they had to arrest him for probable cause of another. Well, if I was a Federalist Society lawyer, I guess I would argue that by dint of the fact that, look, they're obviously illegal aliens, look at the color of their skin. Is that not probable cause in and of itself? Can't we go back to the old days? Trust me, they will. Okay, so the decision mirrors federal court rulings over the past several years on ICE detainers that have found the practice violates Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. Last March, ICE issued a new policy requiring all detainers be accompanied by an ICE administrative warrant. Because, administrative warrants and all those other things really supersede the Constitution now. That's right. We'll just civil litigate this thing to death. You think you have a right to assemble? Sorry. This is all property, and you got to get the right application in with a fee, and you got to put up a surety bond or a surety bond and liability bond, and then you got to get an EPA report, and then you got to get an environmental impact report, and then you got to get a soils report, and then you can have your little demonstration. Okay? However, legal experts say the ICE warrant is problematic because it is an administrative document, not a judicial warrant. Well, how else can they infringe upon our free speech rights if they can't administrate us to death? See how this is? They want to deconstruct the administrative state, except in this case. Okay. An ICE warrant is still insufficient to put a person in jail. As Cody Wolfsey, a staff attorney with the ACLU Immigrant Rights Project, explained, a local law enforcement agency must have a judicial warrant with probable cause to keep a person in custody. Otherwise, local agencies run the risk of running afoul of the Constitution. They don't care about the Constitution. It's just a goddamn piece of paper. We were told that. Now watch me hit this drive. And in this administration, when he says, watch me hit this drive, it's always followed by, now watch me take a mulligan on this drive. By keeping people jailed past the release date, even if it's done at the request of another agency such as ICE, these law enforcement agencies risk lawsuits such as the one settled in Virginia earlier this year by Henrico County Sheriff Michael Wade, Republican. There, a Salvadoran immigrant sued after the Henrico jail held him past his release date at ICE's request. As a result of that case, many Virginia sheriffs have stopped holding people in jail for ICE unless they get a warrant or order of detention signed by a federal judge or magistrate. ICE itself requires its officers to serve the ICE warrant in person and inform the jailed person that they are under arrest for a civil violation. Yet many agencies do not follow these guidelines and instead accept the documents from ICE via fax or mail. Well, this is modern times. No one does things in person anymore. Come on, send a hologram. Okay, last month on the heels of a Think Progress investigation, the Fairfax County Sheriff's Office in Virginia announced it will no longer hold people in jail past their release date for ICE unless the request is accompanied by a court order, and it will cancel its controversial detention contract with federal immigration authorities. Darn, they had all these private prisons set up right in town, too. What are they going to do? Okay, well, the decision is a victory for the constitutional rights of both citizens and non-citizens alike, who for years have been subject to unlawful arrest and detention due to ICE's immigration requests. Do they get to come back? Or are they gone forever and ever and ever? I think that ICE and the rest of this administration hopes that to be forever and ever goodbye. Well, let's say goodbye to them and vote them out, won't we? And while we ponder that, we'll get out of here and visit with you tomorrow for Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays. And stay listening to Netroots Radio for the rest of the day. Some great content, more breaking news, of course. And we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.